So not much movement happening in there. She was licking herself when we arrived. Isn't it fascinating that we've seen, well, for me now, this is the second leopard I've seen in the exact same cave. But while we sit here quietly and keep a look on the Queen of Juma, and hopefully we will have a bit more information for you a little bit later. But till now, the best thing we can do is sit here and observe what's going on. But let's jump on with Jamie, who's looking for lions.
People. We have arrived at the site of the buffalo's demise at the hands or the paws and claws of the Nkuhumas. And of course, the ever-present accompaniment of vultures. And have a look at this spectacular hooded vulture. It's not often that we really stop and look at them as closely as we're able to at this moment. Look at the blue eye. How many of you realized how blue the eyes of hooded vultures are? And with their thin beaks, they arrive to pick at the bits of meat that the other scavengers and predators can't get at, the bits of meat between the ribs and parts of the joints in the skull. That is what they are adapted to. They're called or known as the toothpicks of the vulture world. This one's sitting guardedly in the tree, waiting for an opportunity to descend down to the carcass. And why, may you ask, is he waiting for an opportunity? And the answer is lying at the base of the tree. One Nkuhuma lioness, full of food, panting and hot, and not ready to share her kill just yet. As for where the rest of them are, it remains to be anybody's guess. Just look at those eyes glinting in the afternoon light. She's actually or so hours, but already the process of the natural process of things is currently underway, including 2-day-old maggots incubated at these nice warm temperatures grow very quickly. There's still plenty of meat around the ribs and the spine, as well as the hip bones. They've eaten away most of the shoulder. The nose remains still attached, which is usually the spot that cubs start with, since the adults tend to focus on the more nutritious parts, and the cubs are, in lion society, relegated to the scraps. Eyes are bulging a little bit. The flies are having a feast. And the scent is delightful. It is lovely. Aren't you enjoying it, Brian?
Oh, it's very tasty.
I certainly am. And it is tasty. I must say, you get to the point where when you are sniffing, or when you are sitting in this sort of proximity to a carcass, you do get to the point where the wind very kindly blows it to the back of your throat, and you get an idea of the taste of the lion's meal. Luckily for us, yeah, delicious. Luckily for us, it's something that we get used to. Okay, well, we won't go any closer on that buffalo carcass, so for those of you who turned away, you can tune back in. We're done doing closer examinations of that. And let's have another look at our hooded friend. Patience is the name of a vulture's game. And Kevin Geyer, I'm sorry to hear that your life is thrown out of whack whenever we have technical issues, and I promise you, Kevin, that ours gets thrown out of whack as well. And we also have moments, but of course, it is just one of those inevitabilities. It's so unpredictable out here, and the technological hurdles remain ever sort of re-emerging and changing. It's an ever-fighting wait, let's try this whole expression again. A many-headed monster fighting with different tech issues, which rear their ugly heads every now and again. So I'm sorry to hear that the YouTube is down. And then you were saying that your life revolves around the drives. Of course, for us, ours do too. And I imagine that those of you who are watching on YouTube might feel a little bit like these poor vultures who have to sit and wait for a while. But Kevin, there are other means and ways of watching, so please don't stress too much if your YouTube channel isn't working. Try going on to WildSafariLIVE.com and have a look and see if it will work on there. There's another hooded vulture for you with its bright red face, bright blue ring around the eye. Interesting that they have such pale eyes. There's very few birds out here that do. We were laughing and discussing the dangers of parking underneath a vulture's tree. There's also a whiteback sitting there above. There's a couple of them positioned throughout the trees. And of course, the trees provide such lovely shade that as a novice guide, you might be tempted to park underneath them whilst waiting for some time to spend, or to spend time with your guests and sit in the shade. And as you can imagine, that would be considered a bit of a rookie error, because there's nothing like having a vulture defecate on you to remind you of your place in their world. I can speak from not quite experience, but from near experience. It is not a pleasant smelling adventure. Taking the opportunity to perform some grooming while it waits to descend. And even though this lioness is beyond round and beyond full, and at this point beyond hidden behind a tree, unfortunately, she will still fiercely defend her carcass. Lions are not animals that share. Well, we're going to have to go and see to determine whether or not the rest of them have decided to go for a drink at Red Dam. I'm hoping that's where they might have gone, and that they haven't gone north towards One-Eyed Pan and away from where we could go and view them. But we have a question about the way in which, well, an extension of the question of the way in which lions drink versus the way dogs drink, and therefore which way hyenas drink. Now, as many of you with pets will know, when cats drink, they tip their tongue backwards towards their chin in order to catch the drops and scoop the liquid up into their mouths. Whereas dogs tend to... I know that dogs are supposed to do the opposite. I have seen dogs drink both ways. They're very messy drinkers. They tend to scoop in a slightly different way. They shape their tongue differently. My suggestion would be that hyenas do something similar, because they have to take the opportunity to drink as quickly as possible. It's one of the explanations. I was watching a documentary on the ways that different animals are adapted to drink. Pan Flash, I think that was your question. I think that hyenas drink in that manner, backwards towards their chin, but making their tongue into a ladle. So they're far messier drinkers than a cat might be. In that particular case, I would suspect it is the same for hyenas. We'll have to see. We'll have to keep watching. We'll try and get you... We do occasionally get to see hyenas drinking, and we might be able to zoom in nicely on their tongues and watch that action. Hey, vulture. Don't worry, your day will come, your hour will come, and you may not have long to wait. Now, the fascinating thing about hooded vultures we sit with them at the moment, and we've seen quite a few of them, but believe it or not, they're actually fairly rare in this country. And there's quite a few programs seriously researching into their nesting habits and their breeding habits in order to fully understand and help with their conservation. And Steph, you were wondering, since they perform such an important role in picking clean the last parts of a carcass, you're wondering then surely they must be fairly widely distributed throughout the country, or is it just that there are other animals to perform the same task? And they are fairly widespread within South Africa itself, but then, as I said, they are one of the lesser seen species of vulture. All of our species of vulture are under threat, mostly or most markedly the white-headed vulture, but the hooded vultures as well. What's fascinating about that is if you look further north in Africa, towards Gabon areas, towards the top areas of Zambia, they're apparently incredibly common, almost like the towns and cities are overrun. And the reason behind that, or one of the reasons behind that, and there's a lot of research that's been done into wet season versus dry season, is the fact that they actually have become one of the experts in picking up human beings' waste or rubbish. And that's, in time, made them fairly successful in those particular areas. So an interesting question. Guys, I think I'm going to reposition at some point just so we can get one last view of this lioness, and then I'm going to head out and check whether or not we can find the rest of the pride. But for the meantime, let's pop over to Brent and get an update from his cat.
So we're still sitting here with the Queen of Juma in that little hidden nook. You see, not breathing too heavily. So if you're not sure how she's facing, you just see a few of those rosettes in there. And her head is away from us and her backside's facing towards us. And a big welcome to all our YouTube viewers. I know your stream was down, but great to have you with us. So we're sitting here speculating on the possibility of Karula being pregnant, and is this possibly going to be her first den site? So we've stopped quite far away, and even though it is not the greatest sighting in the world, it is still worthwhile from our point of view to sit here and just check what's going on so we can make informed and correct decisions. So obviously leopards are, in a lot of places in Africa, very rare and scarce to see, yet we're blessed with leopards that are completely relaxed around the vehicles here in the Sabi Sands. And there's a very important reason for that. That is a lot of hard work and by the guiding teams, and a lot of respect for the animals. But we do need to know where cubs are beforehand. And the habituation process to have leopards that are so relaxed around the vehicles starts from when they're just a few days old. So they get used to the sound of our voices around them. They get used to the sound of the vehicles, the smells of the vehicles. Of course you have to be careful and very, very respectful at this time. But without that hard work in the beginning phases, you don't get those leopard sightings later. So what happens, I can tell you normally, is what will happen is that someone, which in this case today will be me, we're not sure what's going on. We think she might be about to burst, so to speak, or pop, probably better than burst. We don't want her to burst. Pop, that's okay. But we want her to, so we want to sit here, and we'll only let one vehicle in here at a time. And I've made sure I've got a nice bit of distance. Nice and hot, she's very relaxed, she's not taking any attention to us, but we do need to be in this position to actually find out whether she has got cubs. She might just have a scrub hair or a piece of meat that she's stored in there we can't see. So unless we sit here patiently, we will never know. And again, if she has given birth and we're the first to see the cubs, we'll generally zone that area for a while. So no one will be allowed here. If anything, we might come here outside of game drive times in the heat of the day. One or two, maybe three senior guides come in, assess, have a look, and see how old the cubs are, see what's happening before we make a decision whether to open the area for game drive vehicles. When that happens, we'll generally open it for one vehicle at a time, and so we'll open it for one vehicle at a time, And while we do that, only one game drive vehicle per game drive will be allowed to come into this area. So it'll come here, and it'll only generally be allowed to stay for half an hour or an hour, and then we'll leave, and then no one else will be allowed into that area till the next safari in the afternoon. And that'll generally happen for a couple of weeks, and then slowly you will then change and you'll open it up for 2 vehicles, and then eventually once the cubs are sort of 6 months old, then you can look at opening it up for 3 vehicles. And again, throughout this whole time, there'll be no viewing of the cubs with spotlights after dark. That'll only happen once they're over a year old. We'll generally view an animal after dark. So really interesting. If she does have cubs, we will go through this constantly and remind you guys. And if we've got new viewers, please feel free to ask us about it. It is a very sensitive time, and I know some people who've been watching for a while are a bit uneasy about this. But don't worry, you're in very capable hands. All of us have got lots of experience, and the last thing we want to do is put any danger on Karula's potential progeny. Let's just have another quick look into there. She moved a bit, Andrew.
I saw a little bit of movement.
There we go. Andrew thought he saw a little bit of movement. So. Oh, it looks like she's just gone flat. So Bill Burkus is wondering, have cubs ever been born in that cave before? Bill, I can happily say I have no idea. There maybe, before I arrived in this area, I think it's very possible. It is a very nice leopard den. We have seen a separate leopard in that cave before, which is Kunyuma, who was one of Karula's last successful litter. He's a dispersal male now, and he's generally seen about 5 or 6 kilometers to the south of us. So, Kitty Cat in Washington would like to know, why are big cats babies called cubs and not kittens? Well, I'm quite sure it's because they're big cat babies and not small cat babies. So you will often find with quite a few different animals, depending on their size, the name of the baby will change. So if we look at big cats, lion, leopard, hyenas also have cubs, bears also have cubs, all the larger animals. If you go smaller, you look at serval kittens, caracal kittens, African wildcat kittens, domestic cat kittens. So there's normally a divide between the large and the small, and even in the antelope. So you start with impala and everything smaller, even a steenbok, up to an inyala, will be the rams and ewes and lambs. And the funny one is the inyala. So the inyala is an inyala bull, but a female is a ewe. And the baby, I'm trying to remember now, is a lamb. But anything bigger than an inyala, so let's say kudu, buffalo, eland, waterbuck, it's a bull and a cow and a calf. So I think it's just to do with the size. That's why they're kittens or cubs rather than kittens. So we'll have another look into the depths of that cave. So I do apologize, the visuals aren't great, but I don't want to go any closer. I want to keep my distance and just observe what's going on. So Laura on YouTube wants to know, will everyone follow those rules I just went through? We should hope so, Laura. I don't think anyone here wants to put these cubs in danger. And obviously, it's always wonderful to spend time with leopard cubs. So by breaking those rules, any guide here would just be shooting themselves in the foot over the long term. If anyone doesn't follow those rules, there will be generally quite harsh dealings after that with, we're not going to go into too much detail, but yes, they will get into very serious trouble. So from a very spotted, very hidden big cat to hopefully one that's giving you a bit more of a show than the Queen of Juma. So back to Jamie and the Nkahumas.
And although Brent says that our lioness is less hidden than Karula, only just in this particular case, and if she drops her head behind the bush that she's currently hiding behind, then definitely not. She decided to get up and move, but what confuses me is that she didn't really find a patch of shade. In fact, she's moved into even more sun than she was in before. I think she thought it was going to provide her with more shade than it actually did. Which is bizarre, because there's plenty of other shady spots around her that she could go and lie in. And just quickly before I chat about this lioness, Steph, something started ringing bells when I realized that I haven't seen hooded vultures anywhere else in the country before. So I double-checked the distribution, and I was wrong. We are right on the end of their distribution. So for the rest of the country, seeing a hooded vulture would be a very, very limited exception. I wouldn't say it's impossible, given the nature of distances that vultures fly. But for the most part, sitting here in the northeastern corner of the country, we are in their sort of fringes of their distribution. As for what performs their tasks in the rest of the country, well, there's plenty of things out there, especially hyenas would be the main one. But there are even something like a porcupine, a bush pig, anything like that might also snack on remains of carcasses. And then, of course, you get the bacteria and the maggots that finish up the job. And one last thing, as we have got so many wonderful hooded vultures to look at, individuals with the redder faces. Get a shot of him? No. Oh, that's inconvenient. We could get a shot of that. Could we get that? Let's try that one. Just to clarify something on them. Thanks, Brian. Now, the one hiding behind the tree with the bright red face and slightly less in the way of feathers around its head is an adult hooded vulture. The ones with the grayer-looking faces are the juveniles. So that was the adult that Brian just showed you. And then the juveniles with the slightly fluffier heads and not as pink faces. Hey, come on, vulture. Got to show us your face now. There we go. Are younger. Oh, there we go. Just a quick further lesson on hooded vultures as they sit beautifully highlighted in the blue sky. Oh no. And while I was showing you the vultures, our lioness decided to play hard to get. She's not really giving us the show as promised and has decided to hide her head beneath a bush willow. It's one of the older lionesses. I've been looking at the condition of her teeth. I don't think it's amber eyes. I think it's the other older lioness, but I could be corrected. She's barely opened her eyes long enough for me to have a look at them. But her teeth are brown, yellow, and chipped, which is usually the best way of judging a lion's age. You can see how she's panting in the afternoon heat. I don't think that she's going to be up to much. Usually lions, when they're sitting around a large kill like this buffalo, will take it in turns to go and drink, rather than leaving the carcass unattended for ranging scavengers to get hold of. They will take turns. So the rest of the pride, or the rest of the lionesses that were with this female, have probably made their way to one of the water sources and left her almost as a carcass babysitter. Oh, she's decided, as we did this, that she's going to stand up because she's being very confusing. Oh, and needs to urinate as well. Hot and panting. And all of that digestion is going to produce some serious heat. And on a hot afternoon like this afternoon, having a very full belly pressing up against your lungs is gonna mean that you're gonna do some serious panting. But I don't know if she's maybe thinking about going to eat, or if perhaps she's tired of babysitting the carcass and would like some food. Or something to drink, maybe. She's acquired a fluffy white seed on her coat, which I think looks like it might be wild cotton. You can see how cleverly the seeds of that plant distribute themselves. She's going to go and feed. Let's find a nice spot so that we can watch her. Oh. Unfortunately, we can't actually, at this present time, switch on Rusty. Rusty's up to her old tricks again, and will not be able to switch off unless we power down our broadcast equipment. Let's see where she decides to go. Ah, I've got good news, I think. One-Eyed Pan, where we can't go, is south. Red Dam is is north. Red Dam is to the southwest of us, and she's going southwest. So she's going to go across to Red Dam. Well, I hope she's going to go to Red Dam. And I think at the speed she's waddling at, she's probably not going to get there before we do. So while we race around to go and catch up with her at the dam, let's pop back over to Brent, who is with Karula.
So at least it looks like the lines are on the move, as you can see from here. Karula is not. She hasn't moved an inch, literally, since she went very flat. Andrew noticed her sort of roll down. She was sitting up on her haunches. Now she's lying on her side. And what we're looking for here is I'm looking for more labored breathing. We can see her belly moving at the moment. There we go. Thank you, Andrew. A cloud popped over, so I had to just change a filter there quickly. So you can see that must be actually quite a wonderful spot on this hot day, as well as being a good potential den. So I know I've had a look at this place after Kunuma vacated it last time, and it actually goes quite deep. So beyond her head, there's probably still another half a meter to a meter. But it's very, very narrow. So as a potential den site, this does hold some positives. The fact that even a hyena would battle to get through that tangle of branches, and even more so if it was extended into there. And obviously, one of the biggest threats to a leopard cubs is hyena. But strangely enough, according to the recorded cub mortalities in the Sabi Sands, above and beyond, the biggest threat to leopard cubs is actually male leopards. Those dispersal male leopards like Mr. Quarantine and Mr. Kunuma at the moment, those type of leopards moving out of their natal territories into other females' territories, still not old enough or big enough to challenge for their own sort of spot in the sun, and they hang around the peripheries and sneak around. If they come across any females leopard cubs, they will kill them. So that is about 70% of the recorded cub mortalities in the Sabi Sands is actually from other leopards. The others next is hyenas, and after that there's some really strange ones. I know pythons, jackal, and lions as well, another one. But I think buffalo is another one that's killed quite a few cubs. A big herd of buffalo smell them out and stampede them. Now, the reason a lot of the big cats and a lot of the predators have very high mortality rates, could you imagine if every single lion cub and every single leopard cub survived? There would be far too many lions and leopards for the amount of prey species that are here. So even though it is really sad and really hard to watch, it is nature looking after itself. It is one of those things that, of course, as people, we like, oh, cubs are cute and whatnot, but them being killed is just the way nature regulates the predator populations. If they all survived, there wouldn't be an impala left in the whole of the Greater Kruger. So So Safari, Dean and Tim have come up with a good idea. That would we put a trail cam up here to monitor the movement and minimize the human interaction? It's a really good idea, guys, but unfortunately in that position, there's nowhere I could put a trail cam that would actually work. We wouldn't actually get any visuals, and I would also have to disturb an area much closer to where she is than I'm comfortable doing. So for now, I think the best way is sitting where we are at the moment. Maybe if she's still coming in and out of this area in 4 or 5 days, then definitely it might be worth putting a trail cam. If you come out, Andrew. So it might be worth putting a trail cam. Oh, it's also somewhere on the edge, maybe in this area over here, over there, on one of these poles here, all those trees there, because if she still is in this area in a week, in 5 days or a week, she would bring those cubs out into the nice cool sand here during the evening or during the early morning to suckle. But that would only be in a week or so. But if she is still coming in and out of this area, then we would look at that definitely as an option. I'm still, as I said, not 100% convinced that this might be the den site. I think there's a strong possibility, but I'd like to watch it for a little bit longer before I sort of put my money where my mouth is. One thing you must always learn about nature is as soon as you think you've got it all figured out, that's the moment you know nothing. So Kathy in Florida is asking if I can give an update on Kunuma. So the last leopard we saw in this cave was Kunuma, and you guys get to see him every morning and every evening on the sunrise and sunset safaris in the title sequence. That snarl is actually in that very cave Karula is lying in at the moment. And as far as I know, he is seen occasionally to the south of us, and he has been heading further south into Londolozi and Maramala.
Sorry, what is that? One was having a woman guy and no drug. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, get it?
So, and a lot of you, Marisha, Jen, Ellen, many others, are wondering if they said that it was reported she was mating with Tingana last week. I think there was a bit of confusion in that. As far as I can understand from speaking to the people who were there, she didn't mate. She did give Tundi a bit of a hard time while she was mating with Tingana, sort of following her around, scent marking and vocalizing extensively. But I don't think she mated, and if she is this far along in her pregnancy, it's unlikely she's going to mate again. And I don't think it would sort of stimulate her into giving birth or anything like that. I think it's one of those things, when the cubs are going to come, they're going to come. And her last serious bit of mating, when she bounced between Tingana and Anderson, would work out quite close to the sort of 90 to 110 days. That is a leopard's gestation. But this is really exciting. So, where we're sitting right now is between Battalier Road and Nyala Road South. And Genevieve in New York is wondering, what is the area like? So Genevieve is quite an inaccessible little creek system. This is really, really, really thick down here. It's a really nice area from terms of a leopard. And you can see nice thick riverine bush everywhere. And Genevieve's also wondering how close is she to the nearest water and the nearest hyena den. Well, after a little bit of rain, she's probably not even 60 meters. There's a set of mud wallows literally just up behind us. The hyena den, probably a kilometer at the most. And then also in terms of permanent water, is about the same distance from the Juma pan at the moment. So that would be the closest water, permanent water. At the moment, there's water all around her. She won't struggle for water at all. There's actually just over here is that pan where we had those hyenas neck deep in it a few days ago with Jamie. So water around. The nice thing about this is that it is very protected. And even if a hyena was patrolling this sort of creek bed, it's likely it probably just passed through. You can see how thick it is around that cave. There's only really one access. It's very difficult to access from the top, although I have seen, or Kanuma did access it from the top, but that's a leopard, far more mobile than a hyena. And it's got that lovely root system right in the front. It does offer a little bit, oh, there we go, a little bit of movement. There we go. She's just licking herself. She's sat up. Quickly across to Jamie, who's got two of the predators together.
Instead of following the lioness straight away, Brian and myself decided to stay and wait and see if the vultures decided to descend. And just as they thought about it, the lioness came back and trotted towards them to make sure they stayed scared. But look who's come here. Look who's sniffing around. And this is why I said that generally they take it in turns to drink. Because you never know who might be waiting in the wings. I don't know if she moved off not too far. We were just remarking on how patient the vultures seem to be being. Now this hyena knows that there's a carcass here, wants to approach, but wants to do so carefully. Whether or not it knows that there's a lion here is another question entirely. But as with all scavengers, it knows to be patient, to bide its time, and maybe today is not worth fighting that particular battle. I think, Mr. Hyena, or Mrs. Hyena, that was a wise call, a wise decision that was made. The lioness would not be very happy to return and find a hyena trying to snack on their kill. I don't know where she went. I don't know if she went to go and just see if maybe the others were on their way back, or maybe there's a puddle left that still has some water in it. I don't think so. But she was not impressed when she came trotting back onto the scene. The vultures seriously thought about going to say, or descending, and in fact a couple of them from trees further away approached even closer to come and sit above the carcass. We're just talking about the patience of vultures and how strong that instinct is, even when they can't see a lion, to then wait patiently in the trees until their opportunity arises. And I guess only the patient vultures are the ones who've survived. But you can see that one. You can see the restlessness in its posture. I think it thought it was going to have the opportunity to feed. And the lioness has definitely scuppered those plans. Head bobbing from side to side. She's decided that nothing would be better for a late afternoon snack than a little bit of 2-day-old rotten buffalo. So let's reposition, or let's see if we can reposition to watch her feed. Nope, unfortunately not. Luckily, we can see from here and watch from here as she tucks into the more difficult parts of the kill. And of course, once they've, oh, yummy. Once they've eaten away all of the best bits, so the liver and the kidneys, the lungs, it becomes a bit more of a chore consuming a buffalo. The skin is very tough. The meat is also not the tenderest, although at least it's had 2 days to tenderize in the heat. And now it becomes a question of the strength of their jaw and their teeth. Astrolina was a little bit concerned that that particular hyena might be one of the hyenas that we are familiar with, and was saying, please don't let it be pretty, because she's too pretty to have battle scars. We're right on the border of the Djuma Dam, oh, it's not the Djuma Dam, sorry, the Djuma clan's territorial range. And I know that their boundary falls roughly along Triple M, so it's hard to tell where that hyena came from. It's definitely not one of the ones that I recognize, and unlikely to have been one of the Djuma clan members. It's far more likely to have been part of the Elephant Plains clan, which is apparently absolutely enormous and has at least 25 to 30 individuals, is what I've been told. Bless you, girl. Did you get a fly up your nose, or was it a maggot? Amazing how tough these animals' digestive systems really are, that they can cope with meat that immediately sets our stomachs churning. But no, Astrolina, definitely wasn't one of our regularly seen hyenas. It could even, of course, have been one of the males that wander along the outskirts of the clans. Whichever hyena it was, it spent its day in mud. I noticed it was covered in muddy water, which we've seen the hyenas do really regularly over the last few days. Shame. She's so restless. She's really thirsty, I would say. I'd say most of her desire for the afternoon is less to do with feeding and more to do with wanting to go and have a drink. Bless you. But of course she can't do that, because she is here as a guardian of the carcass in case ranging hyenas decide to take advantage of her absence. And Socks Cat, you were wondering who would win, the hyena or the lioness? In a one-on-one battle, hands down, the lioness would win. And not only that, but the sounds of the battle would immediately bring the rest of the pride racing to protect the carcass. And if there are any males around, it might bring them as well, although the Nkuhumas have moved into quite a sort of, I wouldn't say a black hole of lion territories, but very nicely in the middle, away from where most of the male coalitions are currently positioned. But yes, one-on-one, this lioness and the Nkuhumas are not small ladies. They are bigger girls. She's probably close to, I would say, 140, and with that full belly, 150 or so odd kilograms, which is about 300 pounds. That's the sort of maximum weight for a lioness in this area that you're likely to see. That hyena, on the other hand, looked to be about, at a guess, maybe 60 or 70 kilograms, so essentially half of her weight. Oh, she's going for the nice soft part of the skull. I picked it up by the eye. I don't know about you, Brian, but my stomach just turned ever so slightly. And I'm usually quite good at these sorts of things, but that was particularly unpleasant. Was that a nice mouthful, girl? Or was that pleasant? Oh. even I, moments like this, sometimes, well, nature sometimes provides with some stomach-turning visuals and smells in combination. Now, unfortunately, you're positioned behind a bush, so you're not getting the full impact of what I'm currently seeing. And she just sneezed it out. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to have to reposition so that you can share in this joy as much as I am. And while I do that, I'm going to send you back across to Brent. I'll catch up with you very quickly.
So she's popped her head up. You can see a little blink of the eye. Unfortunately, we would love to reposition, but as I said, I want to stay a good distance away from her. I want to keep as little pressure on her as possible at the moment. We might see if we can get a view from a little bit further back, a slightly different angle, but I do feel that this is possibly the best view we're going to have. And this is the thing, we are live, so it's not a highlights reel cut together of the best things of 6 months worth of filming. We are sitting alive with a female leopard who's in possibly her new den site, possibly about to give birth in the next couple of hours or the next day or two. So really, really fascinating. And this is the wonderful thing about doing what we do. We spend hours upon hours with these animals. And the very unique thing is you are able to join us. It's not a highlights reel. It's real Africa happening exactly as it should in real time. And there she is, the Queen of Juma. Looking very lethargic. So SafariLIVE says, Brent says this is exciting, but I know he'd much rather be tracking an animal right now. Well, you're actually incorrect for once, SafariLIVE. This is really exciting, and if something does happen, I don't think I've ever heard of a live leopard birth ever being recorded. And who knows? You could join us to be the first people ever in the world to see a wild African leopard giving birth. Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. Okay. From a very flat cat to a very hungry cat.
And luckily for you guys, the worst of that is over. And she has disposed of the most stomach-churning parts and is now gnawing at the skin of the face. I was just saying how incongruous this image is in this beautiful afternoon light with the sun glinting off those stunning yellow eyes. And Africa does provide us with some of the most incredible contrasts in the sights that we see and the beauty of them. She's just decided that it wasn't worth her while to try and peel back and nibble around the flesh around the ribs, and that maybe the face is the next way forward. And since she's not terribly hungry, it's almost more an absent-minded eating while she can, taking the opportunity to nibble away at her buffalo head. We chatted a bit about a lion's taste buds. Of course, we've said how strong their digestive systems are, that they can eat without getting ill. And I've seen them feed on carcasses that are 4 or 5 days old, far more rancid than this particular buffalo, which is positively fresh in comparison. Now, we know that they don't get sick. We know that their stomach acid is powerful enough to protect them. And the next question is, how much do they taste, and what are they evolved to taste? Well, it makes sense that they can taste, since they would show a preference for certain food types. And not only that, but the sense of taste is inseparable from a sense of smell. And of course, we know that they've got such incredible senses of smell. It must just be that they have evolved to adapt to, and I'm not sure necessarily enjoy, but certainly tolerate the taste of rotting flesh, or in that case, eyeball. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to have a picky lion that doesn't want to eat the meat that's set in front of it. They've learned that that way is the road to starvation. But would they prefer a nice cooked, seasoned meat? Probably not, actually. I suppose it's not what their taste buds have evolved to enjoy. And our different cultures, even within the human race itself, certain cultures will eat things that others would revile and are disgusted by, and vice versa. One of those things that I suppose are an acquired taste. I'm not going to set out to find out if that's the case, though. I'm happy to let this lioness enjoy her buffalo meal. Buffalo meal. And Regina Hart, you were glad to hear that I get the willies every now and again as well. That is every now and again as well. That, I have to admit, so what we heard, and I'm not and I'm sure the cameraman will say the same. You do kind of get used to the sense. The only thing I haven't managed to adapt to and learn to cope with has been the flies. I find it very difficult to sense the image of them sitting on the carcass before flying and settling down on my face. I do struggle with that sometimes. There are one or two things, Regina. Centipedes, eating eyes, one or two. Of course, it is their world that we are in. We are just witnesses to it. We're not here to judge them. And you've got to do what you've got to do when meat is in short supply. Although I must say the Nkuhumas have done very well for themselves over the last few days. In fact, they've done so well for themselves that when they first killed this buffalo, which was discovered yesterday, was it yesterday morning? Yes, yesterday morning by Brent. So Ashley Rose, you were wondering about when it was killed. When Brent discovered it yesterday morning, that was fairly freshly killed at some point the night before, when the early hours of yesterday morning. And they've been so successful in what they've killed and eaten that they actually weren't even hungry. They hadn't even started feeding on that carcass. And as we've said before, drought times for lions is a time of plenty. Buffalo kills like this become more and more common. And we knew they were around yesterday morning. It was just a matter of deciding which water source to go and find them at. Neither of us expected to have found them on a fresh buffalo kill. But lions are opportunists. Even with full bellies, They will still, if the opportunity presents itself, they will still attempt to hunt and kill something. We chatted to Tristan and Doug from Simbambili yesterday, and they were saying to us that they strongly suspect that before we even encountered the Nkuhumas on this buffalo kill, they had probably killed and eaten something like a kudu before that, or maybe even a young buffalo calf, before then heading out and killing this sub-adult buffalo. Impressive for 4 ladies. There are buffalo hunting machines in this particular instance. You've seen it with Karula as well. She's also either left a carcass for a while before starting to feed on it, as she did with that Dacre, or left carcasses not fully finished up in the as for example she did in the Jackalberry tree by Buffelshoek Dam. So the animals, the predators, are successful. The drought is playing right into their paws and claws and teeth. As she munches away at her buffalo cheek, Wicked Ange has said buffalo beef cheek that she's munching on. And Pamela, you were wondering if these, what you labelled as water buffalo, are ever eaten by human beings, cooked of course, and eaten in the way in which we would prefer it, not 2 days old sitting in the sun. And Pamela, there's a slight difference between a water buffalo and Cape buffalo. This is in fact a Cape buffalo, which is the only species that occurs within this area. And they are eaten fairly uncommonly at this point, but they are eaten. One of the reasons that they are now very much restricted in terms of people consuming them is because certain buffalo carry diseases such as tuberculosis, as well as foot and mouth, which, as you will know, is transmissible not just to cattle, but also to human beings. So they are now strictly controlled in terms of as either a food substance or even just in terms of known to have the possibility of carrying diseases like tuberculosis and like foot and mouth. And anything west of that line is known to be, or fairly thought to be, disease-free. And it applies not just to buffalo, although they are the main animal that we talk about when we refer to that in that context, but even the lions as well. There's always the possibility that these Nkuhuma females carry tuberculosis. It doesn't affect them as seriously as it does in humans. You might sometimes see the nodules, slight blood coming from the nose every now and again, but for the most part they're far more resilient and resistant to it. Anything west of the red line in terms of buffalo could possibly be eaten if you are so inclined. However, because of the nature of acquiring disease-free buffalo and the progress that has been made in that respect, a great deal of money and time was invested by many people. And since buffalo cannot be transported or cross that red line, the disease-free buffalo have actually become worth a considerable amount of money. And in fact, for the most part, far more money than most farmers would be willing to spare in order to eat them. Although it does happen, not a very common aspect of human diet. And I'm talking, when I say that they are worth a lot of money, I'm saying about R500,000 for a disease-free female, if not more in certain areas. So if this lion were to be tucking into a disease-free buffalo, she would definitely be munching away on about R500,000, which I hate to think of what that translates to in terms of dollars or pounds at the moment. Fortunately for them, they have no such concept and merely do as they have done for hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary instinct. In this case, it means making the most of a meal while they have the opportunity, even if it means stuffing yourself as full as possible and waiting until your pride mates return so that you can go and have a drink. Tiger 6, a warm welcome to our Sunset Safari. You're a new viewer joining us for the first time. And you've been carefully watching the way in which this lioness goes about consuming her kill and wondering why she licks as often as she does. It's for two reasons. One is to get rid of any of the hair that she doesn't really want to waste space digesting or causing any blockages inside her, so the fur of the buffalo. The other reason is that she's actually got spines on her tongue that serve in or are evolved to work in conjunction or in a similar way to the way in which her teeth work. She's able to, they've got backwards facing spines, and if you've ever looked at a domestic cat's tongue, if you've ever been licked by one, and you've felt the roughness, well, it is 10 times as rough in a lioness or a lion. The spines are actually incredibly sharp on their tongues, and they can use that, if they lick repeatedly, to actually catch the tinier, looser pieces of meat and make sure that they've really efficiently stripped the bone of whatever it is they want to consume. Every now and again, she glances up at the passing flies. And to continue on with our discussion about buffalo meat, Steph wanted to know why buffalo meat isn't as common as the other meats. And Steph, I think we've pretty much covered that. For the less valuable buffalo, and I know that we hate to think of it in those terms, but of course one has to be realistic about the way in which conservation and finance interact. For the less valuable buffalo that are carriers of diseases, they cannot really be eaten due to the regulatory laws of the country, whereas for the disease-free buffalo, most of them are kept as valuable stock rather than for somebody's meal, even if it is necessarily biltong. So as we discussed earlier, it is due to the fact that disease-free buffalo, which could be eaten, are very valuable, whilst the diseased ones cannot be eaten by the laws of the country. It's not a risk that they particularly want to take. She's now moved on to the chin, having a jolly good nibble around there. Now, often we see the nose and the face are eaten by the cubs first. As I said, they sit on the extremities. So for cubs that can't necessarily battle their way into the best parts of the kill, it's a good place to start. But that doesn't mean that they are without their own nutritional value. Now, whenever you see buffalo, you see them fairly regularly chewing from side to side, either eating the grass for the first time or else ruminating, so eating the grass cud or re-chewing the grass cud. And that means in their own way they have relatively solid muscles around the cheeks and the nose. And thus there is plenty of nutrition for a lion that decides to munch around the face. And just to finish off our discussion on tuberculosis and foot and mouth, you were wondering as to whether or not those diseases are a danger to lions or not. Will they die from them? And as I said a little bit earlier when I spoke about the transmission of those diseases, they do contract them and they do carry them, but they do show a certain resilience to it. So they won't get as ill as, say, a human being might be when infected by tuberculosis and not treated by antibiotic. It is one of those naturally occurring diseases. So what that means in practical terms is every now and again their bodies might have sort of outbreaks of the disease itself, where they start to get what are known as tuberculosis nodules. Every now and again you might see a little bit of bleeding from the nose in particularly serious cases, and quite often what it does is they recover from that. But what it might mean is maybe towards their old age it hastens their illness and demise, but for the most part they show a natural resilience to it, and it's only sometimes really that the strain truly kicks in and acts to kill the animals concerned. Now I want to reposition and go, not reposition actually, I want to go and see if I can find the rest of her pride, see if they are drinking at Red Dam, and in the meantime let's find out what Karula has been up to.
So she's just started licking her belly. She has been cleaning herself. So if those of you have joined a little bit late, this obviously is definitely not the best view we've ever had of the Queen of Djuma, but we're keeping our distance, and she's in a potential den, and we're wondering if she might give birth in the next couple of days. And we just want to make sure we know what's going on, and we don't want to get too close. Obviously we don't want to interfere or affect, so we're staying quite far away and being voyeurs into that dark little crevice that she's in at the moment. So she's been alternating between sleeping like she is now and doing a bit of licking of her stomach, and I haven't seen any major change in her breathing. It's hot, so she is breathing quite heavily, not too much though. It is a very unique little spot she's got herself in. So water has dug out a bit of that clay bank below the roots of a timbuti tree and what is the other one? A russet bush willow. Now we have seen another leopard, as I have mentioned, in that exact cave before, and it was Konyuma, one of the boys from Karula's last successful litter. He actually had a bushbuck kill in the timbuti tree off to the left of Andrew. And it was the first leopard sighting. The first leopard I walked on foot. I think I've forgotten how many times I've walked leopard on foot since I've been here now, but it was the very, very first one, so really special, and with one of my favorite leopards. We found him on foot. See these fallen down trees through here? He had the bushbuck carcass hidden under here, and we walked in from downstream, and I walked in from there and spotted him from about there, and then we went back to the car, managed to find a way down here, and then he picked up that bushbuck and literally dragged it where we parked right now, and then took it up this wonderful big timbuti tree that Andrew's going to show you now. There we go. And he was here for about 3 or 4 days on that carcass, and we did have some incredible sightings of him. So it is, I know it's not quite high action, but very exciting and very important for us to know exactly what's going on with Karula in case she does have cubs, in case we might have to zone the area for a while, maybe come put a trail camera. And as I said, quite often if we know she's got cubs, we'll zone the area during the day between drives when it's hot and there's not a lot of pressure. A couple of senior guides will come in and assess and decide when we're going to open it up to the other vehicles, and then still only for one vehicle for quite a while, and one vehicle per drive. and then after that, 1 vehicle at a time, but normally 3 vehicles per drive. And it all depends on the situation and the scenario and where exactly those cubs are hidden. But for the first month or 2, they are very vulnerable, so you've got to be very, very careful. Look at that, she seems to have disappeared further in. Or are you preparing for the next generation of prince and princesses of Djuma? So John Ware is wondering, will she scent mark near the den to keep other leopards away? Or will she not scent mark near the den because it might give the presence away? John, she'll probably just carry on scent marking normally. She'll scent mark in the area she would normally. And one of the reasons the leopards move dens every week or 2 weeks is obviously to stop that scent being really, really heavy in an area. So she will move. She'll move around, and she'll have multiple den sites while the cubs are growing up. So I'm still in 2 minds whether this is a potential den or just a cool spot to sleep. It is really interesting and exciting, and as I was saying, we do get to see an incredibly in depth into these animals' lives. So Eric, who's in Virginia Beach and watching on YouTube, says, well, if there was no hole for a leopard to give birth in, to raise her cubs, where else would she do it? All these little things, a section of rocks and crevices that there are somewhere she has given birth before, very close to the Djuma lodges. I know leopards that use abandoned aardvark holes, like termite holes, like hyenas, sometimes to give birth in. Even just really big, thick stands of tambuiti trees, and obviously it all depends on the area. So in this area where we do have a lot of these little creek beds and river systems, it seems to be more normal that the leopards will give birth there. In areas where you've got little rocky outcrops, another very popular spot. But for example, in the Kalahari Desert, they will give birth in gravier thickets, in tiny little, what we would conceive to be tiny little thickets, not even 3 meters by 2 meters. But that's the best available cover. So it all depends on the area they're in and the individual leopard. So in the southern Sabi Sands, where I worked before, we've actually had leopard give birth under one of the guests' rooms. And not once, not twice, but on multiple occasions at 2 different lodges. So it'll be interesting to see if she moves from here while we're sitting here and heads off to see what else she can find and whether that was just a cool spot. Just because she doesn't stay here now doesn't mean it's not a potential den site. She might be checking out spots as well, and she might come back at a later stage. So Mike's wondering how long it takes for a leopard cub to open its eyes, and how long does it nurse for? Well, Mike, I'm gonna... Wait, is that... What's she doing? Sorry, Mike, I'll be back with you in a second. Sorry, I thought she looked like she might be about to move. Like leopard cubs will open their eyes after a couple of days, and they will, and there's always exceptions to the rule, they will generally be weaned from milk completely by about 6-7 months, but sometimes I have seen other leopard cubs a bit older than that. But generally by about 3 months, 3-4 months, they're completely weaned. Sometimes a little bit longer, but very unusual to go beyond 6 months. And the one wonderful thing is a leopard, when it opens its eyes, has the most beautiful blue eyes, and they will change color as it gets older. Andrew, you think she's going to move?
I'm getting that feeling.
Yeah, me too. I think she looks like she might be heading out. She might just head out to the closest little pan for a drink. She could be sitting up because she's uncomfortable, but that's very hopeful thinking for us. Christine, who's in North Carolina, is wondering, is it possible that she may have already had the cubs and they're tucked in behind her? And Christine, it's unlikely. We've been sitting here quite quietly for well over an hour now, and as Scott said, there were none of the sort of associated noises, sort of little meowings and purrings and growlings, but also we could see her belly, and I haven't seen any sign of suckle marks, and that's the sort of dead giveaway that she might have cubs. So a little wet patch around her teats. And also I think we've been sitting here for long enough. We would have seen possible movement and her repositioning for them to suckle. Not that it's not, it could very well be, but I'm leaning to the fact that I don't think so. And also, leopards have a very distinct thing that they do with their cubs. They often vocalize, they do that little call, but they also have a very specialized thing. And as far as I know, only leopards and tigers are the two cats who chuff. And they quite often chuff at their cubs. So sort of a very sort of blowing air. Chuffing it is a very good description of it. That's why it's called chuffing. But I haven't seen any chuffing, and if she started chuffing, I'd be chuffed as anything, because there could be cubs. Jennifer's wondering, would Karula stick to her normal routine, or would she only change when she's really, really close to having cubs? I think as it gets closer, she would change her normal routine. She would stay in a den till the birth, but be very quick after that. She would not go to her normal routine as we've known it. She would become far more sedentary. She would stay in an area. She would hunt in a far smaller area. She would still go hunting. She would still leave the cubs, but she would be far easier to find because she would be in and around the den site. You spotted something, Andrew. You look like you...
No, I was just keeping tabs.
You're keeping tabs. Okay, good. And she's still sitting up. But she is an opportunist. If a bushbuck or Nyala or Dyker happened to wander past her little cave, I'm sure she would pounce. I do get the impression it looks like she might move shortly though. So, UK expat in Pennsylvania. He's saying she probably needs the loo by now. She's been in there all day. Well, if she needs to defecate, she probably would move out of that hole. But if she needed to urinate, she would just urinate where she lies. She is the queen, but there we go. Oh, why did you go that way? Of all the ways to go. Guys, it's going to take me quite a mission to try and get out there. Okay, I'm just trying to see where she's going. Let's go try and find her up on the road. This is going to be fun. Very steep and thick bush to get in and out of here. Watch yourself back there. So while we try and catch up with the Queen, let's jump back to Jamie and the lions. How am I, Andrew? Close.
Sign of the Nkuhumas at Red Dam, which I think means that that lioness actually moved off into the drainage line to say hello to the rest of them. I think that's probably where the rest of the lionesses are lying. And I will return back there in a few moments, but in the meantime I have a special surprise up my sleeve for all of you, because it's been one of those weeks where we have been absolutely spoiled. I'm not going to tell you just what it is at the moment. I'm going to keep it a surprise and we're going to head over and have a look. But it is exciting stuff and I'm excited. It's just a matter of hopping onto that lineup so we can join the rest of the vehicles and take our turn to go and see this particularly interesting thing. I'm going to say no more about it though. Brian and I know. Brian's grinning at the back. We're excited. You just have to be excited in secret and stay tuned to find out what it might be. The only problem with this approach now is I need to go and ask on the radio what it is or what the position of the standby positions are, so when I can take my turn to enter the sighting. And I know that some of you regular viewers will know exactly what I'm talking about. Even if I try and use the Shangaan terms, I think you'll probably be on to me. I'll try and keep it secret for as long as I possibly can. Where's the tortoise? There's a tortoise! Yay! I love tortoises. Let me try and reverse ever so slightly. No, buddy, don't go. It's okay. Awesome. A leopard tortoise. One of my favorite animals to see out here. I never get bored of watching them and thinking about the millions of years that this design has remained unchanged. I'm running to hide. Ha, they can't see me here. Vanished. Actually, we can't see him there. He's absolutely right. Amazing how speedy they can be when they really want to be. It always astounds me watching those little legs at work and the way that they are designed to propel them forward. Fascinating little creatures. Now, he was on his way to go quite possibly move to different grazing areas, and we startled him. And I think he would have been happy to sit there if it were not for the fact that it's in the sun. And of course, as ectotherms, so reliant on external control of their body temperatures, for that reason, they have to make sure that they stay within shady spots. So he's gone to hide behind some trees, both to hide from us and to cool himself down. It's working very well. You wouldn't know that there's a tortoise there. Can you spot the tortoise? Where's the tortoise? Where is the tortoise? I can't spot the tortoise. It's behind there, behind the tree. Oh, no, there he is. He's bottom left. I think that's his shell there. Is that not him? There he is. You sneaky tortoise, you. And the leopard tortoise, of course, named for its incredible spotted coloration. Ah, you can't compete with our super zoom, Mr. Camouflage Leopard Tortoise. We see you. We see you. And as they get older, I'm not quite sure how I would term it. I think the best way is probably the little mounds on his shell rub smooth across the top. So although those layers of growth pattern in the shell that give it those grooves can sort of give you a rough indication of age, a lot of them will have smoothed over the years. So it doesn't give you a perfect, exact answer like counting the rings of a tree, for example, might. I see your eye blinking, Mr. Tortoise. Head backwards and forwards. Awesome. And I would guess that, and I'm no expert in aging leopard tortoises. They can grow to quite large sizes, but they grow very, very slowly. My guess would be that this individual is probably about 15 to 20 years old. So not a youngster by any means. And they can live for exceptionally long periods of time. Cool, wow. Since he's playing hide and seek with us, and I would like to go and investigate what's happening with... Oh, I nearly gave it away. I nearly said what we were going to see, but I'm not going to. Let's head a bit closer and find out what's happening there. Oh, yay, lucky for us, we started this time. Well done, Rusty. There are in these sorts of areas, and what their sex ratio is, so how many males and females there are. So I imagine that their survival rate from hatchlings must be actually fairly low. There are so many predators out here that could set out to feast upon them. And you know our little, for regular viewers, you know that little hinge-back tortoise that we see on quarantine? The one that's got and sort of a groove that you can clearly see and is clearly an identifying feature. Well, I saw it again today all the way on the other side of quarantine, which I find absolutely fascinating. So he's probably got a territory or a home range that he moves around in that's about easily 2 square kilometers, which is fascinating to see. It's one of those things when you spend a considerable period of time in and around an area, you get to observe just these tiny little facets of the life around you and enjoy all of the moments that you get to observe and learn something new that you never knew about animal behavior. Of course, they've got that fascinating design of the fused shell and those scaly legs that stick out from the sides. But there is one part that we don't always get to see that clearly. And Eric, who's watching in Virginia Beach, hi Eric, you were wondering if they have tails. Yes, they have tails. They don't always protrude that clearly out from the bottom of the shell. We don't always get to see them all that clearly, but they do have them. Look at it's easy to think of reptiles and the way that they move because they are slow moving, because they don't seem to have the same, I'm not quite sure how to term it, the same or seeming resilience that mammals and bird species have. It's quite easy to think about them as something primitive and not very evolved, but in fact that's not the case at all. They're just a very cleverly adapted, completely different animal to the ones that we're used to seeing. And fascinatingly, if you look at tortoises, of all the reptile species, apparently they are the ones, and tortoises and terrapins and turtles, so the Chelonian family, as their official name is termed, they are some of the closest reptile species in terms of a link to a mammal species. One of those things that's absolutely fascinating to read up upon, and Brent and myself have just acquired a tortoise and terrapin book that I'm currently working my way through and reading a little bit about their evolutionary history and the way that they're adapted to the world that they live in. And now with the drought, so they've had to evolve all kinds of other means of protecting themselves and adaptations for surviving in some of the harshest conditions. And there's conditions. South Africa is a country of incredible natural variety, and yet tortoises are found throughout the country, within the deserts, within the Karoo, in places where there's hardly any rainfall and seemingly, at times of the year, hardly any food. And their metabolism is so well adapted to being able to completely slow down. The same goes for snakes, of course. It's why they take so long to digest big meals, and how the reason it takes them, or the reason why they don't necessarily, like a lion, have to kill every 3 days. And while I jump on board the queue for this new and exciting sighting, let's pop back over to a Karula on the move.
Okay, so we're back with the Queen, and she's mobile. She gave us a bit of a runaround for a second, but we luckily managed to find her again. Looks like she's possibly going to scent mark. No? So she's zigzagging quite a bit. I'm just going to try not follow her through there, because I'm not going to make it. Lots of stumps and things, and we might lose Andrew to a thorn tree. Keep an eye on her food. See how wonderful that camouflage is, even when she's out in the open, not, you know. So, see, who can spot Karula? And she's out in the open, and look at that, how she blends so perfectly into the surrounding bushveld. We're just going to stand by here on the road, see which way she goes before we decide which way we're going to go. What is she up to? Oh, she's been spotted by a grey go-away bird. Ah! You can just see that air flicking. I just want to see where she's going. Let's move forward a little bit. You can see her ears. There she is. She's looking at us over the You got it, Andrew. Any little bit. I should put her head down now. There we go. You can see. There she comes. And you can see that heavy weight I was talking about. Now, the problem with... Oh, she's going up and down there. With older female leopards who've had a few litters, is... She's lying down, and then let's go have a look. As they become older, and they do have a lot of that excess of belly skin, so it can get harder and harder as they get older to tell pregnancy. So I'd always rather err on the side of caution. Let's go around. Look, just going to go around to get you guys in the best spot to have a view of the queen. Watch out, Andrew. Also, the other reason why I'm going around this way is to just double check that belly for suckle marks, so we can have a look very carefully. Unfortunately, it just doesn't look like we're going to be able to get into a spot where we can see her belly nicely. Maybe we can sneak around the side. Hello, madam. There's a fallen tree opposite her, so we're not able to get around to have a good look at her teeth. Yes, yes, madam. The other thing is she's probably moved out here as it's got a bit cooler. It probably is a little bit stuffy and hot inside that little cave. And very much a family trait of Karula and her offspring, the occasional snarl, and then back to licking or sleeping. Here we go. Get in that bed. See, she is licking her nether regions quite a lot. Now, leopards do it, but she seems to have been doing it quite often today. So I'll get my binoculars out, see if I can have a look. And I know she was doing it this morning with Scott. So I don't see any suckle marks around her teeth, but obviously not the best angle. But you can see how heavy she is, and it's a solid heaviness. It's not that sort of round, heavy belly from eating too much. Does seem to have a bit of stiffness in the back legs. It looks like she's about to walk behind me. Sorry guys, just on... about to walk behind the vehicle. You can see she takes no real notice of the vehicles. Time for the afternoon ablution. the Queen of Juma. And I'm almost confident enough to say I think she is pregnant at the moment, but oh, it's such a big call. And as soon as you start getting too cocky and thinking you know, it's when you get towards left and around the bush. Now this is quite interesting. She's burying her dung. Now that is not something we see too often, which is a possible good omen that she might be wanting to den in this area. And we often see Karula defecate. She just defecates on the road and carries on, defecates in the bush. But there she's actually gone and chosen a sandy spot. She's defecated and then covered it up. Okay, let's move on. Let's just wait for Craig to move first. So there are all these really positive signs that are happening. And I'm really glad we decided to stick it out with her while she was hiding in that cave. We're just going to wait for Craig to move. She was a little bit snarly there, so I'd rather just move one vehicle at a time around her for now. This is really exciting. Fingers crossed, guys. Do I think she would lead me away from her den? I don't, Bill. I don't think leopards have that level of cognition, but she will definitely take precaution around the den, like burying the feces. Like she won't defecate very close to the den. She'll move away just to try keep that scent from building up too quickly. Is there a way to tell if a leopard is pregnant from their urine? Zoe, I think if you were able to get a sample and test it, most definitely, but not from any form of smell or sight. I think she's moved. If she is using that cave as a den, I think she has moved up and out to get a little bit of that cooler afternoon breeze. Be very interesting to see if she heads back into that little spot. That perfect little curve in the tail. So Diane on Twitter is wondering, well, if a leopard is getting ready to have a baby, won't she lick all the fur off the area around her teats? Not in my experience, Diane. So there is already an area that's devoid of hair on her teats and that, and instinct takes over on those little cubs. So when we see a suckle mark, it's because we can see the wet area from the cub's saliva around the teat on the hair. You can see beautiful late afternoon light creeping through as the sun starts getting lower. Holly's wondering, would she bring a kill close to the den site, or would she not want the smell nearby? Holly, she wouldn't. If she's got very young cubs, she would hoist the kill or stash the kill somewhere away, and then she would travel to and from the kill, feeding, and then alternatively feeding the cubs. When they get a bit older, she will actually fetch them and take them back to where she's made the kill. She does look like she's a big girl at the moment. Even just see the way she's sitting. She's almost spreading her back legs. But as I said, the breathing doesn't look too elevated and pretty normal in this sort of heat for her to be breathing like that. And isn't this incredible that we are able to spend this much time with these animals and see into sort of the secret parts of their lives? So Vicky's jumped in on the speculation wagon, and Vicky says she's going to go with her getting that she is pregnant. She's hot, she's huge, she's grumpy, maybe she's getting close to labor. Vicky, you're braver than me. I'm not ready to jump just yet. I think she is pregnant, but how close she is to labor, I'm not sure. She's not very far from that cave where she spent most of the day. Now, this is going to be quite interesting if she heads straight back there. She just came out of that cave to defecate. I've heard that heard that pregnant humans need to urinate a lot, but I'm not sure about pregnant leopards. Look where she's going. So while we see where Karula is off to, Jamie's got a surprise for you on the other vehicle.
Well, we've certainly been spoilt with big cat sightings over the last few days. And look who we have here, hiding in a drainage line. None other but Tingana himself. And if Karula is the queen of Djuma, then he is certainly on his way to becoming king. From what we've seen, he's pushing more and more into those sections of the territory. And he's shown himself to be a fearsome hunter. And although you can't see it at the moment, up above the dam wall, and the reason behind that very round, very full belly, is that he has killed a baby zebra. And from my perspective, unfortunately, Brian can't see it from where he is sitting. We had to choose between a good view of the zebra or the leopard. It is not the smallest baby zebra either, which is exceptionally impressive. Big male leopards always astound me in terms of their strength and their size in bringing down kills like this. And not only that, but he would have had to compete with a very protective family, particularly the stallion of the herd. He, just like our lioness, is very full-bellied and panting in the heat of the afternoon. He's gone down into the drainage line, but seems like a foolish decision on his part because it's not very... I'm not sure if you heard that, but one of the guest vehicles lost some sunglasses. They're suggesting that if they leave them behind, perhaps Tingana will walk around wearing them. I can imagine him in aviators. I think aviators, Ray-Bans. What would Tingana wear? I definitely think that if leopards had a fashion sense, he would be high up on the list. I've got a better idea. I think he should wear those round Sergeant Pepper sunglasses. That's what he would wear. I'm not sure why. I think he'd just be that cool that he could get away with it. But yes, that's what all of the commotion was coming from the other side of us, and the giggles from the other vehicle. Where was I? I was talking about less ridiculous things than leopards wearing sunglasses. And he really is a truly attractive leopard. Even hot and full as he is, and coming really into his prime. At about nearly 10 years old, or close to 10 years old, he's right at the point where he's going to be competing for his last few breeding years before it comes time to move on. And because of Anderson, or the Anderson male, which is rumored to be the biggest leopard the Sabi Sands is, and apparently she has returned to the den, so let's go and have a quick look.
So she's hopped back down into the drainage line. She's going back into the cave. So this is a really, really positive sign that this could be the den site. She came out, she defecated, she buried that feces, and now she's gone back in. So very, very interesting. And we're actually the only car that can get down here. The other cars are a bit too big. So you can hear Craig and Taxon are up on top. So we did think she might be moving off to go hunting, but now she's gone right into that crevice. We can barely see her. FM taxi 0 out of 5. I can see 2 spots.
I want to waste my time. My time coming down there.
Copy, thanks. Yeah, she's deep inside now. I literally can see the end of her tail and her foot.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
So, you guys, just updating Tax. He was wondering to know what was going on. So there we go. You can see very, very little of her.
We had by far the best visual.
So really exciting. I mean, this does sort of hint towards this being a den, and it does hint towards it being the first den. Now, it is possible she could just be checking this area out, and she might go off and check another den site. But fingers crossed, guys. So I definitely think it's worth sitting here for a bit longer. I definitely want to watch her behavior and to see what else she might do, whether she moves again. But we will make sure we are out of here before dark.
All right, I think we're going to go find a place for a leg stretch and a DNT.
So we can't see anything here at all. So I wonder what Tingana is up to. So we're going to stand by here. Let's go back across to Jamie and Tingana, the possible baby daddy.
I've been attempting to shift forward ever so slightly to try and have a look at Tingana. Now guys, there is a waiting list of people wanting to get into the sighting. Oh, but the forward movement did provide us with a view of the zebra. So you can see his kill sitting on the top of the drainage line wall. That's where he's left his kill, having a bit of a belly break to rest himself. Now, as I said, there are people waiting to come into the sighting, and it is a 2-vehicle sighting due to our current position sitting in a thicket, and essentially there being only space for 2 people. Although he is here, we will only get to spend the next few minutes with him. Nice though for the moment to just enjoy it, and I'm just going to take, because I forgot to take my foot off the brake as Brent linked to us, so the camera's going to wobble a bit. It's not Brian, it is me. Here we go, just allowing the car to rest on her gears without me having to keep my foot on the brake. Look at you, beautiful boy. And Patricia, although we are in a very similar area to the one that Brent is in, he wanted to know if he was close to Karula's den, and the answer is no. We are, although for leopards, I suppose, leopard distance, yes, we're probably about roughly 4, I don't know exactly where Brent is, but we're probably roughly about 4 kilometers away from the Mulwati itself, if not more. Quite a walk, but of course in leopard terms, if they can easily, quite happily cover 20 kilometers in the day, if they feel like it, it's not that far away. But he's obviously finished with his mating session with her daughter Tandi, and now needs a well-deserved break and a meal. And to convert that into miles, just roughly, that's about just under 2 miles. The distance from him to where Karula is now and the possible den site. Now, we've said that he's the possible father, and there's been some interesting stories from the guides who've known Tingana years before we did, and I've heard tell that he has killed leopard cubs before that quite possibly might have been his, or females that he's mated with. These are rumors, these are not something that I've heard confirmed, but a couple of the guides have mentioned it to me independently. It's not unusual. Of course, we know that about 50% of all leopard mortalities are by other male leopards. It does happen. Now, guys, this will be our last visual of Tingana. We're going to have to pull out and let some of the other vehicles come and have a look. And in the meantime, Karula is up and about and on the move.
So, Karula's come out of the cave and she's now down on that lovely sand at the bottom of the creek bed. I'm wondering if she's just coming to lie down in the cool sand, maybe a bit more comfortable for her. Now we have to do the 29-point turn again. I think she might flop down in the sand. There we go. She pops out. She definitely looks uncomfortable. Andrew and I were chatting about it now. She doesn't look like she's walking with discomfort, but we're going to have to now. Let's see if we can do this with less point turns than we did last time. How many was it last time, Andrew? 32. 32. Okay, let's see if we can do it in under 7. Branch, I'm just going to try and lose it. 6. That's better than the last time at least. Very tight little corner to get in and out of. Watch out, Andrew. Where's she gone? She carried on walking straight up the dry riverbed. Now, being Karula, she can disappear in seconds. So while we try to find her, let's go have a quick look at Tingana. There. I think I see her.
Oh, we're still with Tingana, luckily for us, and the reason for that is that I'm just waiting for the vehicle that's on its way here to get here, just so that if they do get lost or they do get mislaid somewhere along the way, I can help them find their way into the sighting. It always helps for each vehicle to just stick around until the next person has made their way in. At that point, then, I'm going to leave and allow the next person who is waiting in line to come and have a look at this beautiful leopard. I hear some of you have been straight up to the task of photoshopping sunglasses onto Mr. Tingana. I hope they are befitting of a leopard of his dignity level. Well done, Safari Dean. I hear you've been very fast at work. Andrew, quite a long time ago, actually. It might be one that some of the new viewers might not have been there for, which was to imagine what each animal would listen to if they listened to music. Now, for me, I think Tingana is old school rock, and I'm thinking sort of maybe the Stones, the Ramones, maybe a bit of the Police. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Oh, Tingana, what would you listen to if you were listening to music? I just think he's that cool. I also think in the madness that has descended upon my thought patterns, that perhaps Karula, if she wore sunglasses, would wear those sunglasses or those glasses that were fashionable with the rhinestones and the sort of winged edges. I'm not sure if they have a name, but they were definitely fashionable in the 60s and 70s, and that's the kind of thing I'm picturing for her. I could be completely wrong, of course. I'm open to suggestions. I was thinking exactly down the line. Jerry's on the same train of thought. I was thinking exactly down the line of something out of Greece. I'm not sure, though. I don't know why I think that about Karula. I think either way they would look particularly stylish on her. and I think I probably have lost my mind. What do you think, Brian? Brian agrees. The things we start to think about in these quiet moments in drainage lines in the middle of Africa. Well, as for Karula's music choice, I have no idea. I believe it was Mission Impossible when we last spoke about that, but she was hunting at the time. I'm not sure whether she might have mellowed a little bit during her time off. Amazing how they always find these spots that look uncomfortable to us. So much so that one almost wants to hop out and join him in the sand. I can hear another vehicle approaching. So at some point we are going to have to leave. They're on their way now. But nice to know that he will be well fed. And there's enough left of that zebra that I think unless he leaves it on the ground, he might try and hoist it. He could well be here tomorrow, actually. There's plenty of meat on it. Now, he's powerful enough. At around 90 kilograms, I reckon he could drag that up into a tree if he eats a little bit more of it to keep it safe from any of those marauding scavengers that we saw earlier. And if that is the case, he could well still be here tomorrow morning for the sunrise safari. So even though we have to leave him now, we've got very good prospects for the next day or so, as he rests quite happily in the sand. Joyce, now the leopard that we're looking at is a strong contender for the father of Karula's cubs. Joyce is watching in New Hampshire and was wondering, could be Tingana. It could also be, of course, Mvula. And we know, and I'm sure Brent has touched upon the fact that leopards will mate with as many males as they possibly can within the area to trick the male into thinking that they are the father, and therefore reduce the risk of them killing their cubs out of natural instinct. The Tingana could well be the father. We did see him mating with a Karula around Red Dam and just before Big Cat Week, so around October last year, which would put, in terms of gestation period, would put it perfectly around this time for Karula to be due to have cubs. It would be very interesting to know. I'm just going to pull out for you. You sure? Thank you, Jason. Is there another vehicle on its way, or is it... Okay, perfect. Okay, well, the good news is we can actually stay for longer than I expected. Obviously, the standby that I heard over the radio was for a different sighting. So we will be able to spend a little bit longer with him. And well, we have one sleepy leopard in a drainage line. Brent has got one beautiful one on the move because we are just that spoiled. So let's go and have a look.
There we go. That's the spot we want to be in. Isn't that stunning? That lapping up that water. Elvis, on Wooders, make your way into Nyala Road South.
Nyala Road South, roger there. That's more Curtis into the Mulati and the Makacha, Kayamazi.
Look at that. Thirsty kitty.
Oh, okay, copy that, copy. Thanks very much.
She's scooping her tongue backwards and...
Yes, and that's what leopards do, I think. And lions, and dogs. She's lapping it up.
But it's like it's going underneath the back of her tongue.
No, if you have a look, she's using the front of her tongue. It just forms a little, see there? See how she, oh, I see what you mean.
A little scoop.
A little scoop, yes. She's quite thirsty. And as I said, there's quite a lot of water around her at the moment. So if this is a den, she doesn't have to move too far. But this water is not going to last forever, I'm afraid, unless we get a little bit more rain. You can hear the squirrel behind us. Dean is wondering how far are we from the duiker in the tree. We're quite far, probably just over a kilometre as the crow flies. She's actually moving in that direction. I doubt there's any meat left there. It probably been stolen and eaten by ants, vultures, or whatever. I haven't been past there for a few days. Michigan is wondering if it's because she's pregnant that she didn't kill that baby duiker properly a few days ago and also abandoned that duiker carcass in the tree. Lynn, I don't think so. Leopards have, in that case with the baby duiker, she had hurted enough that it couldn't call out in distress or make noise, so it wasn't going to attract hyenas, and so there was no need to exert more energy. Whereas the other duiker in the tree is a very simple explanation. The fact that Tandi and Tingana were mating quite close to where we are now, that she marched in there to go inspect. We've seen her do it before when Kwatile was mating with Mvula. She snuck around watching them mate. So that is very normal behavior for a female leopard when another female leopard is mating within their territory to go in and have a look. And it is the one case where they will abandon kills. And you can see that heaviness I've been talking about. And it's not that round fat belly. And now she's coming back towards us. She's just patrolling around the area of this den. She's going to cross right next to me. And look, you can see she's right here. Hello, madam. You can see she's completely relaxed around the vehicles. Well, she's looping back. She's smelling around. She's definitely checking this area extensively, which is another good sign that she might be wanting to den here. We still haven't moved too far from that cave, and she's just checking everywhere. Isn't this exciting? You can hear the little testiculars very upset with her presence. Melissa in Los Angeles is wondering, do leopards eat the afterbirth to keep predators away? Melissa, they will. And you'll find most animals do that, whether they are predators or not. And there we go. It looks like she's trying to defecate again, but she is looking quite uncomfortable. Now, she hasn't covered that one up. Wasn't a very big one there. Make sure we don't drive on it. It's still very smelly if you get it on your tire. Behavior we're seeing this evening. Just remember, each individual animal might have a different routine before they give birth. And again, a lot depends on the different sorry guys, it's heard, it sounds like there's some elephants actually quite close to us as well. Just to the right of it, we have branches breaking in the thick bush. But we're going to stick with the queen for now. It sounds like there's some ellies in here. It depends a lot on the surrounding area, how they're going to mate, I mean not mate, where they're going to give birth, what den sites they're going to use. And unfortunately I have not spent enough time with Karula to be able to immediately say that she's for sure about to den or give birth. But very interesting behavior. I wonder if any of our viewers have ever seen behavior like this before on the earlier safaris. If you have, let me know, and do that via email, questions WildEarth.tv, or on Twitter with the hashtag SafariLIVE. Other viewers are wondering, what are the chances of us actually seeing the cubs move inside her belly? I'm going to say almost zero, actually. So, unlike humans do not have that fluffy fur, so the fur will actually hide any of that movement. So I've never seen, in all my years of watching leopards, a baby leopard kick or move as you can see on a human belly. And even think about it, you have to be really close to see that on a human. And you can more often feel it rather than see it. But I don't think we're going to be able to see that if she is pregnant. I'm 99% sure she is pregnant, but how close she is to birthing, that I can't say for certain. Like she might go off the road now. If she does, it is a very difficult area for us to follow. I'm hoping she does stay close to the road, but there is a sheer drop of about 3.5–4 meters. And even with my off-roading, I don't think we're going to survive that one if we tried to go down there. To inspect that termite farm. I'm just going to try and get it into the gap. we're close to the junction with Central now. Look, she is inspecting. It looks like there's a hole in that termite mound. And as I said, some leopards, I know of leopards in the Sabi Sands. Oh my goodness, she's disappearing down it. Is she going after baby warthog, or is she inspecting a den? She's gone right down that hole. And she's come up with nothing. Look at that. Now that is another potential den site for a female leopard. I have seen them den in termite mounds in the Sabi Sands before.
How are you? All right, my man. You ready for update for Masa's Eastwood? I don't think it's
Okay, sorry guys, just going to be on the radio quickly for a second. What's she doing there? Is she going back down a different hole?
Here's someone just going to unlock it. It's crossing the center or something like that.
Oh, okay, copy.
Look at that. She looks like she's digging almost. So again, once we see what she's doing, I can't see any sign of warthog utilizing this really. So this could be another potential den site. Station's Karula is still off in Yellow Road South, probably 50 meters from the junction with Central. She's going in a hole again. Oh dear. And she's coming back out again. She might be making sure that there's no, if she is looking at it as a den site option, she might be making sure there are no porcupines living in this one. Porcupines are great fans of these disused aardvark barrows, as are warthog. Oh, looks like she's got dust in her nose from going down the hole. Looks like she's going to go right behind us again, or is she going to turn back to the cave? No, it looks like she's going to continue on north slightly. You see where she's going? Let me know. Is she going to go north or back? Static. Watch out. There we go. She's actually lied down. Looks like she's doing a bit of preening. Just be careful before she's a bit more freaking out. Yeah, that's unfortunately the best view we're going to get from here for now. Let's just wait to see if she moves again. So really, really fascinating the amount of time she's spending in this area at the moment. And looks like she's going to just rest here for a little bit. And unfortunately, we don't have the best view, but we have been having some spectacular views. But I wonder what Jamie's up to at the moment. And if she's heading back towards those lines, we're going to go across So Scott in Washington's about to head on a really exciting adventure, a self-drive trip through Namibia and Botswana. And Scott's wondering, should he apply the same sort of principles we do with our vehicles, or as a novice, should he give them a bit more space? Scott, definitely try use the stuff that we do on drive, but really please do give the animals a little bit more space for their safety and yours. So as it's cooling down, she doesn't seem to be moving too far away from this little drainage system. I'm really fascinated to see if she decides to head back to where we were with her, or she heads on. It is getting a little bit darker, and we might not have the chance to see if she goes back. If she goes back in the dark, I'm actually going to call it there that we won't have any vehicles following her tonight. I think it's best to give her a bit of space, especially if she is about to give birth and about to den, that we let her have her own way in the nighttime hours. So we will stay here for as long as we can before it gets too dark. Okay, well, we wait to see what Karula does next. Jamie's got a prickly, or pieces of a prickly friend that Karula was in danger of encountering when she went down that warthog burrow.
Definitely lucky for Karula that she didn't encounter this particular spiky creature whilst investigating holes around the place. I've just found a whole bundle of porcupine quills. Now, it's not unusual for us to find one or two, but finding a whole collection like this does make me question exactly what happened in that particular patch of road. We know, for example, animals like Vula will tackle a porcupine, but it does take a rather desperate leopard to want to do that. Some of them specialize in it, but you can get a really nice idea of the different types of the quills of South Africa's largest rodent. So, for example, this particularly thick example, no, don't blow away, please, stay. This particular example is where the real weaponry lies. Thick, solid, and strong, and long in size. So this would be the quills that sit on the back and at the base of the tail, that when they feel threatened will puff up like this. And this little end here is particularly barbed as a way of helping it stick into the animals that are hapless or unlucky or foolish enough to tackle something like a porcupine. And then, of course, if that animal does manage to get past the formidable defense layer, there's still these little guys, much smaller, much thinner, to contend with. And you don't want to be tackling something like that or having that go anywhere near your teeth or your gums or your eyes. You could just imagine how well that works as a defense system. Now, lots of people believe that porcupines are capable of shooting those spines out at offending predators, and that, of course, is not what they do. They puff themselves up, they stick the quills up at an angle like this, and then they rush backwards very rapidly. A sort of reverse charge that comes to be very unexpected. Now, it's common for, if there's something like a leopard or a leopard or a lion does, whoopsie, I'm spreading spreading porcupine quills everywhere. I was going to say it's common for an animal that does manage to kill a porcupine, and it does happen. Happens more frequently than I guess we really think about it happening. But what they will do is they will pluck the quills out of the way. So the number that I found, which was probably about 15 of them, isn't as much as I would expect to see at a porcupine quill, sort of at a porcupine kill site, not a quill site. It was a quill site. I watched it over as a kill site. The end result of that is what happened there, and why were there 15 quills lying in the road and not just 1 or 2? Because they do shed them. They're modified hairs, so they do get shed. And we've got but the thing is, we've got a collection of all sizes here as well. So maybe I just happened to find one spot where an animal killed a porcupine and then it decided to drag it off elsewhere and finish plucking in a safer area. But interesting to see, and you can really get to see the different colouring of the different quills. Now, the fascinating thing about porcupines is that they live in pairs, in mated pairs, and they are monogamous. And not only that, that they mate for life, and they mate every day. Now, that is not just for reproductive purposes, but it's actually for reaffirming the bond between the male and the female. I will tell you that a baby porcupine is one of the sweetest things you'll ever see. And you can imagine that they have to be born with soft quills. The mating process itself, as you can imagine, is done very carefully, and usually by the porcupines having to dodge all of these quills and spines. Now, I'm thinking about turning this one into some kind of hair decoration. I don't know if this is going to work, but something similar to this. And I'm probably going to forget about it and stab myself in the back of the neck, but I'm going to make a plan nonetheless. And then I'm going to dodge all of the ones that I've now dropped into the footwell of the car and hope that I don't stab myself in the foot. Ouch, this is already uncomfortable. Too much hair, it's not going to work. I have to rethink it. Might have to utilize 2 of them, maybe a thick one and a thin one. I'll think about it. There's nothing more attractive, of course, than porcupine quills. Not an animal we get to see all that often out here. I'm going to keep them in a safe spot. Offer them to maybe the ladies in FC if they would like a trinket to take home with them at some point. But yes, not an animal we've got to see all that often. I've been surprised by how few porcupine quills I've found on the road before. So this is actually quite an unusual find, particularly of all of the different shapes and sizes. But there you go, porcupine quills in a nutshell. And I'm going to collect the ones before I stab myself in the foot. That one in particular looks like it might do some serious damage, especially since I'm not wearing boots. Don't feel like finding that attached to the sole of my foot. Awesome discovery. Oh, we just wanted to show you that. I'm going to slowly make my way back across to Djuma. I did want to go and follow the up on the lionesses and find out what's happening there. Unfortunately, guys, there is a queue of people waiting to see them as well, and we're not going to go and try and force our way into that. So we'll just have to follow up with them on the sunrise safari. Drop its quills in a stressful situation, like birds might do their feathers. And yes, that is one of the options that I considered. They do come loose, so when they shuffle around and probably when they stretch them out to make themselves look big and scary, you'll probably find that that particularly not provokes, but results in the loosest quills actually being dislodged more extensively than they might be on a normal day when the porcupine is just shuffling around. So that is a distinctive possibility, and they probably would do that. It could well be that this, I mean, I'm speculating, and the reason I'm speculating about this is because we found this on a route that Tingana could well have taken to where he killed that zebra. I'm speculating that maybe that porcupine could have encountered him. He has been known to kill porcupine in the past. And in fact, Tingana seems to be a specialist in terms of burrow hunting different animals, from aardvark to warthog, from what I've been told, and from what I've seen while I've been working at WildEarth. So maybe he encountered the porcupine got a fright and did its threatening display, and in the process lost some of the quills. Or again, it might have been killed in that area and then dragged off to somewhere else. I did look around. I did go and have a look, checked under all the bushes just to see if maybe there were more porcupine quills elsewhere. But you can imagine it's a tough and a very delicate job plucking porcupine quills. It's often not worth the effort.
This spot, there she is, pretty lady. So while you've been away, we've been chatting on the Game Drive channel, and everyone is going to leave her in a few minutes. So if she can have the evening to herself. And so there's a few vehicles coming in to get one last look of it before it gets dark. So I don't think she's going to move too much in the next little while. But I will definitely be in this area bright and early tomorrow morning to inspect. Sorry, I was just going to be on the radio. Alright. Here we go. There she is, looking back. Very exciting times ahead of us. And she is displaying very different behavior. So guys, we've spent nearly 3 hours with this amazing leopard, and just before it gets dark, we're going to give someone else a chance to come in here, and after dark we're going to make sure she's left alone. And who knows, will tonight be the night that Karula brings the future princes and princesses of Juma to life. But we're going to let one of the other vehicles get in. They haven't had a chance to see her. We've seen her for 3 hours, so we're going to see what else we can find for the last 2 minutes of drive. That side, Andrew. Oh, as we decided she's about to walk right in front of us, so we're just going to stop now. So she's decided to get moving. Be interesting to see. She is still heading north away from that cave. That doesn't mean she won't return to it a bit later. Heading north towards Buffels Hook Waterhole, or Buffels Hook Lack of Waterhole. But as I said, there are another vehicle. Continue on, see what else we can find. Hopefully those elephants we heard a bit further down might have moved out onto the road or playing in those mud wallows. So let's go have a quick check there. We're just going to wait for the vehicles to move on past us. Enjoy, guys. Cheers. Yeah, thanks. Gombo F is thanking me and trying to bribe me with the beverage. I think we'll go look at elephants instead. So we did get a question in there from Bethany. I'm afraid I didn't quite grab it while I was chatting to Ephraim. In Virginia was wondering, do I think leopards are more cautious where they give birth the older they get? Maybe not more cautious, more experienced, definitely. Probably learned from a few mistakes over the years. So generally with your older females, especially in this age group the Karula is now, they tend to be slightly more successful mothers than, say, a first-time mother. But not more cautious, more experienced, I think is the best description. This is where it sounded like those LEs were, and I'm hoping they might have headed towards those mud wallows. Unfortunately not. On email would like me to go through the protocol what happens at a leopard den or once a leopard gives birth again. So what generally happens is, like now, there was only one of us down in that drainage line trying to see what was going on, and generally what happens is until we actually first see the cubs, then the protocol changes quite. So at the moment we'll keep an eye on her quite carefully, all the different guides and trackers and everyone. But when she does, once we've confirmed there definitely are cubs, that area then becomes zoned for about a week or 2 weeks. Just depends on the area, what the other animal movement, hyena and lion activities are like in the area at the time. And then generally it will be assessed between game drives by a group of senior guides. We'll all go in one vehicle together and decide whether that den site should be opened or not. And if it is decided it should be opened, it is generally opened for one vehicle only, and only one vehicle per safari. So there will be basically only 2 vehicles will be allowed to go into that den during the whole day. One in the morning and one in the evening. After a while, it will become opened up a little bit more, that it will still only be a 1 vehicle sighting, and only 1 vehicle can be there, but multiple vehicles can cycle through. Until eventually, once they get to about 6 months, it will probably become a 2 vehicle sighting, still another 3 vehicle sightings. And we don't spotlight cubs till they're a year old. And even then, even up until about a year, we normally keep those sightings to only a 2 vehicle sighting. In extreme circumstances with really relaxed animals, it can be made a 3 vehicle sighting. It is at the discretion of the senior guides. You can't treat every scenario exactly the same. Each scenario is different. But of course, it would be ridiculous for any of us and the guys from the surrounding lodges and that to try to put any undue pressure on those animals. If we lost those cubs, it's apart from the fact, of course, it'd be terribly sad, etc. It is also bread and butter for the safari industry having cubs around. So everyone is very careful, and if anyone does break those sort of rules of conduct, there's very heavy implications that happen. So I'm pretty sure if Karula does have cubs, or actually we have to change that, when Karula has cubs, hopefully we'll be able to watch them grow up like you guys have done with quite a few of the other litters. But one must remember there is a 70% chance that those cubs will not make it. That is the mortality rate of leopard cubs in the Sabi Sands. So 70 to 80% of leopard cubs never make it to adulthood, never make it beyond a year. Once they're beyond a year, they're pretty much sorted in terms of females. Their next sort of big dip off is when they get to sort of 13, 14 and beyond. But males, males, once they get to a year, they're fine, generally till about 4 or 5 years old. That's when they start fighting other males for territory. Then obviously there's another dip off and die off. But then, again, on a really good sort of flat platform to about 11, 12. And as I was saying, the known recorded cub mortalities in the Sabi Sands, male leopards are the biggest culprits at killing leopard cubs. So what an exciting afternoon, and Karula displaying that incredibly different behavior. I've never seen her behave like that. So finger crossed that she's about to den, and we're going to have Karula's next set of progeny wandering the African bushveld of Djuma Private Game Reserve. But I will be going to double check on that first thing tomorrow morning. Don't forget to join us for the sunrise safari. But for the last few minutes, let's go over to Jamie.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what an awesome afternoon that it has been. Filled with cats of different sizes and shapes. Some very full and some very pregnant. An exciting prospect for the next few drives. And speaking of next drives, do not forget, of course, that we have now shifted the start of our sunrise safari, and that we will be starting half an hour later every morning, so at 5:30 Central African time. And just a quick display of the best hairdressing skills that I actually have to offer, and a bit risky, I might actually stab myself in the neck, and I broke and one that broke very sadly in the construction of this magnificent hairpiece consisting of porcupine quills. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure as always, and I hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Big thank you to Brian for keeping me company and doing his wonderful filming work as always, as well as to the ladies in FC entertainment and photoshopping sunglasses onto leopards. There's nothing that keeps us more entertained. Have a fantastic day or evening, world, and we'll catch you tomorrow morning. Cheers, guys.